Welcome to Alan Skorsky Reports. I'm Alan Skorsky. October 7th, 2023 will go down in Jewish history as the second time since the 1973 Yom Kippur War that Israel missed the warnings of impending attack for which the people of Israel paid a steep price. And while the trauma of October 7th will never disappear for the Jewish people, the sin of silence from the world's democracies has yet to stand trial. While many countries, including the United States, offered measured sympathy for Israel, it wasn't long before they, the media, and human rights organizations started blaming Israel, demanding only a measured response against Gaza. At the UN, Secretary General Guterres partially justified what Hamas did by stating this attack didn't just happen in a vacuum. Organized Islamists and jihadists took over the university campuses across the United States and Canada. In European countries like France and Great Britain, the streets were already lost to these marauders a long time ago. Leftists in academia, the media, and elected officials didn't take long to blame Israel for October 7th, and worse, accused Israel of genocide after their strong response in Gaza. These attacks against Israel from leftists were expected, but over the last year, a new front against Israel and the Jewish people erupted from what used to be considered conservative circles. From Candace Owens to Tucker Carlson and others in the podcast sphere, desperate to build a following, found libeling and slandering of Israel to be the most convenient path. Sane people found themselves asking, when did evil become normalized? When did the truth and facts stop being important? With sane and rational voices like those of Douglas Murray, Charlie Kirk, Mossab Hassan Youssef, and Erin Molan, how could the side of good and righteous be losing to the side of Hamas, Mehdi Hassan, and Cenk Uygur? Today, I am honored to have from Australia the inimitable Erin Molan, host of the Erin Molan Show, to try to answer these questions. Erin, it's an honor to have you. I know Australia's time zone, you're a week ahead of us. So it's great to have you. So before I prepare for every show, usually 2 to 3 days in advance, and I had decided that I was going to make the theme of this show about moral clarity, since truth and facts no longer matter. And as I was doing my research on you and all your work, I found that a year ago, you put out a video titled Erin Molan Calling for Moral Clarity. And that was a year ago. So my first question to you is this. From year one to year two, we saw just incredible attacks against Israel and the Jews from the left. In the last year, maybe a little bit less, we saw a different type of moral decline coming from the right. So what I want to ask you is, from your own perspective, how do you see from year one to year two when you made your video to now how the world, or certainly how democracies, have lost their moral compass? Yeah.
Alan, thank you so very much for having me on, for your very kind words, and for your brilliant introduction, which was somewhat depressing, but unbelievably accurate, unfortunately. I think moral clarity is key, and the video that you refer to was almost completely aimed at the left and at this complete hypocrisy we were seeing from people who purport to be feminists or human rights activists who are marching in the street next to Hamas flags flying and the flag of the Taliban, or the face of the Iranian supreme leader, who we know is an absolute terrorist. Not for a second did I think that we'd be here now talking about the likes of Tucker Carlson, the likes of Candace Owens, and plenty of others who have jumped on this complete idiotic bandwagon of just hate, conspiracy theories, and using the Jewish people and Israel for clicks. And that's essentially what it is. You know, how many of them genuinely believe what they're doing? I don't know. How many of them, it's almost worse that they are doing it because it is profitable for them and because it is generating so much engagement, which is, I think, almost worse than generally, believing what you're saying. But how did we get here? Well, a complete lack of moral clarity. And I saw that in my own country the day after October 7. That event itself impacted me very deeply. But that happens, right? We have terrorist attacks. I then saw a group of people outside the Sydney Opera House a day later celebrating, calling for death to the Jews in my country. And again, horrific, gut-wrenching, but there is evil in every society. Okay, we get it. What terrified me was the silence of my fellow Australians, with that being beamed around the world as a representation of my country. The fact that maybe people had moral clarity and could see, but not the courage to speak up about it. Since then, I've lost my faith in that people, have moral clarity. I don't know. Sometimes I feel more confident in that. Other times that wavers. But I think we've lost that ability, and there's a lot of noise out there. I get it. There's a lot of money going into social media from the likes of Qatar and other nations that harbor terrorists and that fund these kinds of things. But overall, I think the infiltration of groups like the Muslim Brotherhood over 50 years in our educational systems, pushing this woke narrative, has made our kids and our young people ripe for the picking, and that's why we're seeing the decline in society as we are at the moment.
It's interesting you say that because I remember years ago, before the Albanese government, because I had a friend years ago who was in Australia's parliament. I think in Australia, the liberals are what we call conservatives here in America.
Conservatives,
Right.
absolutely.
And that back then, they were solidly, pro-Israel. And you had the same thing in Canada, where we used to have, Stephen Harper was the prime minister, and then it went down to little boy Justin Trudeau, and now it's Canada and Australia and Great Britain. You also made another video about 11 months ago where you said that you traveled to Israel yourself and you went to the kibbutz and you saw, I guess, the video of October 7th. Now, I myself did not watch the video, and I don't know if I owe it to the victims to watch it. I just know that if I do see it, I won't be able to unsee it. But then leads me to another question. Has Israel and our public relations, because Israel's public relations sucks, did they drop the ball by not making the videos that Hamas themselves recorded? Did they not, should they have not forced the world to watch it instead of keeping it? We want to be respectful. We don't want to shock people. Could that have made all the difference? Because you did see it.
It's a great point you make. And I would initially say, if Israel needs a PR strategy after October 7, then the issue ain't Israel, for starters. And yes, they're not particularly great in the space of PR, and that's been a massive failing in so many ways. But let's make the point: no country should need a strategy after October 7. There was enough vision out in the world for people to see what these evil scumbags had done. I agree with you entirely in that I think every second should have been released. And I have met with so many families. I have traveled the world. I have been to so many corners. I have sat with parents who lost children on that day. And all of the ones that I have encountered have said the same thing. It would be very difficult, but we also believe that would be in the best interest. We want the world to see what they did to our kids. So I know there are some people who did not want that to occur, and I can't even imagine their pain. But from a greater good perspective, and there are people who say it won't change anything, they'll say it's fake, blah, blah, blah. I think it was a real own goal not to put it out there. And I'll tell you why. Prior to October 7, my dad had fought in Iraq. He'd fought against Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Taliban. I had heard and I had seen some of the most horrific things done to people by terrorists. I think you can only imagine the kind of things, the taking off of heads that had occurred. What I wouldn't have realized if I had not watched the entirety of this raw vision, it wasn't so much what they did to people, and that is, Alan, it will never leave my mind. It replays daily in my mind what I saw in that vision. And I was with a group of people, most of whom left after about 5 minutes because they couldn't watch.
Right.
And I understand that completely. But what you don't understand until you watch the reaction of the terrorists to what they were doing, the joy. And that, I think, is the key point here. You are not dealing with just numb, kill, move on. They derived so much joy from the killing of children, of babies, of the elderly, of mothers. And I think for me, that was the moment that I went, oh my Lord, this is not a normal enemy that any weak Western leader like Macron, like Carney, like Starmer, far, far away saying, make peace. No, absolutely. No, make peace. Oh, no, no, no. Like, no. Watch that vision in its entirety, and not one of them would ever allow that kind of evil on their doorstep, let alone 1,000 miles within their reach. Never. And I think that to me was the crucial part, was to help me understand. I didn't need to see it to believe,
Right.
Alan. I believed clearly from the second I came out very publicly, and then doubled down when I got insane backlash. I didn't need to see the entirety of the vision. I saw enough. But to watch the entirety helped me understand that this is a particular type of evil that I didn't realize existed. So that to me was the crucial part of going there in person, standing in a room where two twins the same age as my little girl and their little brother were burned alive, having watched their parents be killed. The image of a dad jumping through a window with his two boys, one under his arm, the other running, and you could see his eyes. And he knew that this was the end. He knew he was not going to be able to protect his children. Like, it's that stuff. And I cannot look. I've lost so much faith in humanity, which is so sad. But I know there are a lot of people. There's a lot of evil people who march with them, but there are a lot of people I know who have just fallen victim to the propaganda, to
Right.
very effective, clever propaganda.
Yep.
So you need to push back with not propaganda, but with truth, volumes of it to show them. And I think that would have made a difference. Yes.
It's funny. You mentioned you're a mother and I'm a grandfather. I know I don't look it, but two of my four grandchildren were the same age as the B-Bus kids. And I had that vision of one of my daughters being taken away on the motorcycle, and two of my and it's horrifying to know that how they were murdered. They were strangled to death, if you remember.
I can't.
Um,
And that's the thing, Alan, that I try and do in my pieces. And this is, I love speaking to Jewish people. I love speaking to Israeli people, but my target audience are people who aren't Jewish, who aren't Israeli. And what you just said then, that's how I try and win hearts and minds. I try and make people feel. I try and say, imagine if it was you.
right.
Imagine if it was your child at the supermarket. You lose sight of your child for a second, and it's that feeling that you can't even describe of pure fear. Imagine watching them be dragged into Gaza
Yeah.
by terror. Like that's the part. What you just did
Right.
there is what I try and do when I try and speak to people who feel like, oh, this doesn't impact me. It's too far away. It's not my part
Yeah.
of the world. I'm not involved. We all are.
But here's the crazy thing. I'm here in America. Um, there is a plan. And, the Council of American Islamic Relations CARE. They've got a long-term plan. We have mosques all over America. And, they talk about the Jews want to control America. The Jews want to control Congress. You have videos that Memory puts out from imams saying that this is their plan. They're going to get
That
rid of the Jews. They're going to get rid of the Christians. So don't trust me because I'm Jewish and I'm biased towards Israel.
Yeah.
Fine, I get that. But they're telling you what they're going to do, and yet you're too blinded by your own focus and hatred on Israel. And that's the part that I try to wrap my head around. Okay, so you know what? If I wasn't Jewish, if I wasn't a Christian Zionist, if I'm just a plain person who just wants to live my life, how would I process all that information?
And that's also what I try and do as well, because I think, if you frame this as just a Jewish issue or just an Israeli issue, people who are not part of that category switch off to it. And it's not because they're not decent. It's not because they don't care. They've got enough on their plate. Cost of living crisis, they're fighting with their partner, their kids are driving them crazy, work's a nightmare. You get it, right? People
Yeah.
have a lot on their plate. What we need to do is show people, and it's not about being tricky because it's the truth.
Right.
Show people what is at stake here and why it matters. And you talk about different organizations, the Muslim Brotherhood. If they had hidden their intent, then I would say, okay, it's still really bad. We've allowed them to completely infiltrate, but they were really sneaky. They're not hiding it. It's part of their they've got documents that state exactly what they want to do. They list the points of their plan. They're halfway through and they're doing a bloody good job of it. They infiltrate from within educational systems, schools, colleges,
Right.
online, social media. Mamdani, they're supporting. Like, look at what they are doing. They're not going to line up at your border with tanks. This is not how they work. They're coming in from within. And it's part of their plan. Again, it's absolute insanity. And if you think when you watch a terrorist attack in a Western nation, if you think they're checking your religion as they drive their car through your Christmas market, then you are sorely mistaken.
Right.
This ain't about Jews and this ain't about Israel. This is about all of us in the West who believe in democracy and freedom and hope and life, and it is all at stake. And that is not being dramatic. That's not
Right.
being dramatic, and it's already here. So we're already starting from, we're 50 years too late. And there were, the UK, come in Muslim Brotherhood, come in. Australia was the same. Egypt banned them.
Right.
Egypt. And they are not sympathetic. Dalia Ziada, this phenomenal Egyptian activist who fled there, a Muslim woman, because she condemned Hamas on October 7 and said Israel had a right to exist. She had to flee Egypt because she was going to be killed because she stood up for Israel's right to exist. This ain't a country that's sympathetic towards Israel. Right. And they banned the Muslim Brotherhood. Yet we are seeing countries in the West just say this suicidal empathy. Come in, come. No, not even, we'll let you in. Let us help you. Let us encourage, to come in and destroy everything.
And we're electing you to office. You got the mayor in New York City. You have Ilhan Omar in Minnesota. And right now there's a whole big scandal in Minnesota with the whole Somali community.
Yeah.
So Americans have
watching a press conference on that this morning.
Somehow to the Tucker Carlsons, who shouldn't have any. I don't know what motivates his allegiance, but his focus is on AIPAC and the Jews controlling Congress. Erin, we've got about 2 minutes left, and I know you've got so much more to say. I know that recently the Pope called for a two-state solution, and the Pope is one of the most moral leaders of the world. So if he's not getting it, I don't know who does.
It's a great point you make, and I actually, the previous Pope, when he had said and done a few things that I thought were appalling, and I'm a Catholic girl from Australia, it was a very hard decision for me to do a piece to take him on, but I did it, and I feel like it is just as relevant now. And I think you look back at the history of the Catholic Church, well, I'm sorry, popes are not perfect. And I looked at the comments there, and he's talking about these ways to peace, and the way to peace, Pope, is not to slaughter innocent people. Right. Is not to be a terrorist, is not to raise your kids evil. Who want to kill, and to recognize evil, to identify. You can't beat an enemy that you cannot identify. Right. My dad used to always say, you can't fight a war that you don't understand. So you're right. When I see that, I think, why do we bother? But we do, because it matters, and good will win eventually, Alan. I have no doubt.
I hope so, because I used to be the most optimistic person on the planet. And for the first time, I say that me as a Jew living in America, our days here are numbered. I just see it. And something that I never thought I'd say. 10 years ago, I never would have said that. Anyhow, Miss Molan, I know that you have a very, very tight schedule. Everybody wants to talk to you. So I want to, again, thank you so much for all the work that you do. God bless you a million times over. And I hope to talk to you again real soon.
Bless you, Alan. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for all the incredible work you do. It is easy not to use your voice, but you do so in spades, and I thank you so much for it. Really appreciate it.
God bless.
Bless.